guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of Staying Sweet, the podcast. I am chatting all things self-identity formula today, and it's one of my favourite things to focus on at the moment. I have been chatting to anyone who will listen, particularly my close friends and family, about the incredible benefits of creating a self-identity formula and embodying that person, that future version of yourself. Now, some of you may be listening today knowing what a self-identity formula is. Some of you may not, and that is fine. This episode is going to touch on just everything in between. So firstly, before we get stuck in, I wanted to do an intro with some updates as to what's been going on, in particular in my life with this quantum shift that has been going on. Crazy stuff. I've been using this technique lately in different areas of my life, particularly in my health and fitness, my running journey, and in my career journey. And my self-identity formula was something that I found a little bit of resistance with when I was first creating that idea, that new version of myself, because I didn't actually know who I wanted to be. And I've spoken quite openly about this before, that for quite a while, particularly last year, I just didn't really know where I wanted to go or where I wanted to be, and like what I wanted to do within my career. Like I knew I wanted to be within journalism, but just the things that I was kind of going for and reaching for weren't coming into my life. And I think a lot of what that boiled down to was my lack of identity. And in creating this idea of this future version of Alice, this future version of me who would have all those things and be all of those things, I needed to kind of connect the dots and sit and think about who that person is, what they do, what their everyday is like. And honestly, in creating a self-identity formula recently, I have dusted off those cobwebs. I am showing up as that person today because that is who we need to be. We need to kind of aim for the stars, aim for the sky. Now, one of the things that I have recently in my life kind of come across is this idea of like a blue sky scenario. And it can kind of be described really as, you know, what is the biggest, boldest version of you? Like, who would that person be? How would they identify themselves? What would they be wearing? And like, what car would they be driving? Sometimes it can come across as quite a shallow thing to consider, but it is so necessary when you're on this journey of self-identity in order to make that sort of big next stage jump into that reality. And the blue sky scenario is your wild dream situation. It's this big expectation. It's almost the end goal, the end person that you see yourself becoming. And usually the end goal isn't the final version of ourselves. It's just the version of ourselves that's, you know, a few steps ahead, or, you know, between a year or 5 years ahead. We tend not to think about the version of ourselves in 20 years time, or when we're in our 80s and we're kind of thinking, okay, who is that version of ourselves? Usually our big sort of blue sky scenario is a version of us which actually isn't that far off. So this episode is about identifying that person and rolling with it. So ultimately, that idea of your self-identity formula and your personal brand and how those two things are connected together. So your personal brand really essentially is how you view yourself, and your self-identity formula is how you view yourself. So connecting those two things together, taking the opportunity to redefine your personal brand with your blue sky scenario self, this crazy, it might not even be a crazy, like wild version of you. It might just be someone who is a little bit more grown or a little bit more well versed in the career that you're in, or the places that you want to be and the places that you want to go. So really the main thing that this episode is for those of you who lack the ability to give permission to yourself and find it difficult to connect your current identity to that future identity, and figuring out like, how can you be that person when you're not that person yet? And it's kind of like the analogy of fake it till you make it. And I know that comes with a lot of controversy and opinion, because not everyone believes in the fake it till you make it mantra. But I think there's something quite interesting about how those that have used that have bettered themselves and kind of stepped into this next level version. So the biggest thing really is not letting the fear of doing the thing, of being that person and becoming that person, stop you from getting there. So ignoring those feelings of imposter syndrome, of embarrassment, or like the idea that you have to cringe out. I've seen a lot of TikToks and a lot of like YouTubers touch on this idea that when you're first starting something, it feels really cringy, or you cringe yourself out, or you have those moments in your career where things are a bit quiet and people aren't like clapping for you, or your business is a bit quiet and you're not making many sales, and suddenly you go into this like really self-critical mode where all you want to do is like self-attack and kind of belittle yourself. And actually that feeling of cringe is a form of resistance and a form of procrastination, and it can be really hard sometimes to get yourself back on track, get out of that rut and reconnect yourself to that self-identity formula, that future version of yourself that you have. And there was something that I quite liked in this statement, this idea that you need to hard launch your dream self like you would a relationship on social media. I know everybody loves a hard and soft launch, like they're the best things ever to witness on social media. Hard launch your dream self. I have seen this in people who have suddenly decided they're going to create content on I don't know, being a financial advisor, or create content on being, you know, an avid gym goer, or a baker, or someone that like cooks a lot and makes beautiful charcuterie boards, like, and suddenly starts a charcuterie event business. Like, that is so niche, guys, but these things exist out in the wider world, and you will not be able to allow yourself to connect with that person if you don't hard launch it and you just ignore those feelings of, I'm not sure this is right for me, and I'm not sure I'm good enough, or I'm at the point where I can do this. Because a lot of it comes down to the feelings of self-worth and self-belief. So the easiest way really to get out of your comfort zone is to step into that next phase, whether you like it or not, and allowing yourself to become that person. So when we look to describe this and we look to discover what a self-identity is, what this person does for a living, what car they drive, how they get up in the mornings, whether they buy a coffee instead of make a coffee, like all these little nitty-gritty details are important to your story, because that is going to allow you to connect to your quantum jump. And I find quantum jump a really interesting piece of terminology, because people hear that phrase and they think, what on earth are you talking about? Where has this idea that you can jump into a new reality come from? And it does feel very Star Wars-esque, very futuristic, and almost impossible to achieve. But when you look back and you think to past versions of yourself, even in a year, between the beginning of a year and the end of the year, and you look back at that version of you and you think, gosh, I don't really connect to that person anymore. I've become this entirely different person. Even when you feel comfort in that person and you've developed into a new version of yourself and you're stepping into that new version, don't attach this feeling of, I need to keep to this version of myself forever, because you physically cannot. It is so impossible to stay the same version of yourself. Like, you can be a loosely similar version of yourself, but actually what goes on behind the scenes is the quantum jump. And a lot of the time we imagine a quantum jump as like a rags to riches scenario, or a startup to billionaire business scenario. And what it actually is lots of little steps, lots of little changes and habits and decisions that become your future version of you, your quantum jump. So this idea that quantum jumping is when you're not self-aware is interesting, because there are moments when I've quantum jumped and not realized it. But actually, think about how you can be tapping in to this quantum jump that you are aware of. Think about how powerful that next level you will be if you actually are aware of it, and you're sort of recognizing the changes and you're recognizing the motion. Like, have you ever done something or gone somewhere and there been this really weird synergy, or you meet someone who then becomes really integral to your life and you think, that was my canon event, that was my quantum jump? I feel like quantum jumping and canon event, they're the same things. They propel you in the same ways. And I know I love to talk about Taylor Swift, but it's just come to mind because I saw someone talk about it on a TikTok yesterday. Also, I feel like I always talk about TikTok, guys. I'm on it non-stop and I'm not even mad about it. But the amount of things that I learn is crazy. But somebody was saying that Taylor Swift losing her masters to Scooter Braun was her canon event. And actually, she was incredibly famous at that point. She had what many would define as everything. And then she lost her masters and lost her music. But what it did for her was completely pivot her in a new direction, in a new way. And she was able to find herself on a global eras tour, a new tour that not only takes her new music and celebrates her new music, but her whole back catalogue. And she's been able to redo and recreate her back catalogue and do it even better, hit billion streams, have it charting in the music, you know, industry that we're in now, where her music is topping charts and it's, you know, 5-6 years old or older. Like, how mad is that somebody who thought maybe this was it, this is as famous as I'm going to get, or this is as successful as I'm going to get, it actually turns out to be not even a dent into who they would become, much like Harry Styles. And I feel like I just sound like a fangirl, guys. But Harry Styles is another example. You know, when he was on tour with One Direction and he said, oh, like, if this is all it's ever going to be, like, I'm just so glad that I got to do it. And we got to do these stadium tours. Lo and behold, he then propels himself into a solo career, and his canon event launches him into sellout, like 5 or 6 day shows where he's doing Madison Square Gardens. He's selling out O2 arenas and Wembley arenas and stadiums across the world. Like, we cannot fathom sometimes the version of ourselves that we're going to become. And that's why we need to know early on. We need to not play small. We need to have the blue sky mentality and make it work for ourselves. So actually becoming aware of your quantum jump, or where you want your quantum jump to kind of roughly take you, is going to help you climb those rungs, climb those steps towards this version of you. And in order to be aware of yourself, you need to identify with your self-identity formula every day. Or at least for the most part, check in regularly, once a month, weekly, whatever you can do in your schedule to make it work for you. But something that is going to benefit you is having that self-identity formula written down. Maybe it's on like an A4 piece of paper, or it's in your scripting journal, and you are writing down, I start my day at da-da-da-da-da, like literally list the entire thing. Do a morning routine for your future you, like a routine for where you get your coffee and then where you go to drive to your office, or maybe you commute, or maybe you don't commute because you work from home and you have this beautiful home office, or maybe you get in a car and you're driving to your dream studio and you're recording in a studio that's yours, owned by you. Like, those levels of you, connect with them, write them down, list them if you're not a very descriptive person. I think, you know, sometimes it is hard for people to be descriptive, but when you're passionate about something and you know what you want to become, I think you can make it happen for yourself and you can describe those things. But if it is difficult, bullet point them and just list them. So what you're going to do is script that future version of yourself and then remind yourself each day. You're going to read it. You're going to have your morning coffee or your juice, or you're going to be on your treadmill doing your 12-3-30, and you're going to be reading your self-identity formula. So if I was scripting for my future self, the future version of me who, I don't know, maybe the quantum jump that I want to do is wake up early, tick off lots of things off my to-do list, like hitting the gym and realigning my energies and getting on and being productive. If I was doing that for myself right now, I would script my morning routine and I would kind of work out what those things identify as in my routine that would make it successful. So is making my own breakfast every morning or meal prepping my breakfast, is that a future version thing? Okay, well, that's not that difficult to do now, so I'm going to do it now. I'm going to embody it now. Sometimes we hold out this hope and we wait for the ample time or the ample opportunity, or we decide that, oh, well, I can't explore the world, I can't travel, I can't do X, Y, and Z because I don't have a boyfriend, or I don't have a friend to go along with me to an event, or like a seminar or a networking thing or expo. Stop limiting yourself to needing to do it with somebody else and just start doing it. Just show up and be there and do the thing. Have the breakfast, drink the coffee, go on the treadmill, like become that version of yourself. Like if you want to drive your dream car, test drive it. That is going to connect you to the energy of the thing you desire. Get yourself on to that energy. I'm just going to leave you with, I guess, the final statement, which is to discover who that person is and identify with them now. Don't waste another minute. Think about that future version of yourself and show up as her. Put on the blazer, get your nails done, wear the outfit that's going to make you feel like your $1 million self or £1 million self. Go out and do it now. Stop limiting yourself to tomorrows and I'll do it on Mondays. Stop. You got this. I believe in you. I'm going to leave it there. I hope you guys like this pep talk for Monday morning. I really hope it's been a nice kind of like kick up the bum. I love a kick up the bum podcast, something that just fuels you for the rest of the week or the rest of the day, whenever you are listening to this. Please, as always, leave a rating review if you haven't already. It just lets me know that you're enjoying the episodes. Continue the conversation over on Instagram at Staying Sweet Podcast, and I will see you guys next week for a brand new episode. Bye, guys.